Today I want to share the best supplements for very specific health conditions. And I think everyone should really know this information because sooner or later you might end up with one of these problems, and it'd be nice to know a remedy that could help you, especially if you're not into taking drugs. Now, when people research supplements, they have this idea that evidence-based research is the best way to find out if a supplement worked. This is very misleading because when you look at evidence-based research, you're going to find a lot of mixed reviews when we get into supplements, simply because certain organizations, and I'm not going to mention their name, will purposely do research to invalidate the results of natural remedies that compete with commercial remedies that make a lot of money. Who's going to fund a natural remedy? It's very, very expensive to do research. And so you're not going to see a lot of credible research in the area of nutrition. We have this omitted research that people will say, well, there's no research to say that it works. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that no one wanted to pay for the research to validate if it worked. So what I'm going to share with you is based on a lot of personal experience working with a lot of people, tens, hundreds of thousands of people over years, and just observing what works the majority of the time and what doesn't work, as well as a lot of deep diving into the mechanics of how nutrition solves a problem. This video is not going to be a comprehensive study on every single health condition, but I'm going to talk about the top health conditions and how supplements or a nutrient or a remedy could help that problem. Starting with probably the most important one, which is vitamin D. One thing you need to know about vitamin D is that we have a lot of resistance against absorbing vitamin D for all sorts of reasons, from the lack of sun because we're not outside as much, depending on the season, where you live in relationship to the equator, how old you are, how much you weigh, if you have insulin resistance or diabetes. You can override all these problems by just taking more vitamin D3. You would need to have at least 10,000 IUs to up to 50,000 IUs every day, and even more than that depending on certain circumstances. And I've done a lot of videos on this topic. One of the most important conditions with an S that vitamin D can help you with is autoimmune diseases, okay? The common theme of an autoimmune condition is inflammation. So vitamin D in the right dosage can be a very potent anti-inflammatory. Vitamin D regulates the immune system. In other words, if you have a hyperimmune system, vitamin D can tone it down. And then we have other conditions where we're lacking immune support, and that would definitely be something like cancer, AIDS. Vitamin D is essential for those conditions. Vitamin D also works great for depression. Another condition that you might not realize that vitamin D is good for is glaucoma. In fact, a lot of problems with the eye can be greatly improved with high doses of vitamin D3. And then we have the classic low back pain or anything related to your pelvis, like hip pain, deep bone pain, vitamin D3, because vitamin D3 can help benign tumors as well as cancer. Another really great benefit of D3 is anything related to hair loss, dermatitis. A dermatologist would give one remedy, vitamin D3 in high amounts. They would get amazing results with almost every different type of skin inflammatory condition. And one key point about vitamin D, anytime you take vitamin D3, you also need to take the cofactors, magnesium and zinc and vitamin K2. All right, the next supplement I'm going to recommend is magnesium glycinate. I don't recommend other forms of magnesium too much, especially because the absorption is not that great. So what is magnesium good for? Well, allowing vitamin D to work. They both work together. You could actually take vitamin D and be severely magnesium deficient and not see any of the results from vitamin D. The same thing goes with magnesium. If you're taking magnesium without vitamin D3, magnesium will only work to a certain degree. And anytime you take either magnesium by itself or vitamin D by itself and then develop side effects, it's usually because you're deficient in the other cofactor. There's a lot of body conditions that occur in the early morning because of a deficiency of magnesium, because magnesium kind of goes on this wave, and you're going to hit the lowest point in the early morning, maybe about between 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. What kind of problems occur more in the morning? A lot of problems. Cramps in the legs, cramps in the foot, increased risk of heart attacks, clotting happens more in the morning, strokes happen in the morning, even the dawn phenomena, which is the higher blood sugars occur in the early morning. All of that means you need magnesium. Migraine headaches, magnesium. But you need higher amounts. If you're taking like 400 milligrams, you'll see the results. But with migraines, sometimes you need to take 800 to 1,000 or even more milligrams of magnesium to create the effect with migraines, depending on how bad they are. Also, magnesium lowers cortisol and adrenaline. That's why it's good for sleep. Magnesium also helps thin the blood and helps prevent clotting. Magnesium is good for blood pressure, good for anti-clotting effects, good to prevent cramping of muscle, but magnesium is really good as an electrolyte to prevent arrhythmias, as in atrial fibrillation. So that's another really important heart effect. Magnesium is also at the heart of making energy. So anything related to chronic fatigue, a loss of energy in the mitochondria, magnesium is the answer. Especially if you're exercising and you just don't have that endurance, you need magnesium. The way that I know that I have enough magnesium is all of the muscles in my body are calm and not tight. This last point is magnesium to prevent kidney stones. This is a huge reason why people have kidney stones, is they're magnesium deficient. Next is betaine hydrochloride. That should be taken anytime you have heartburn or indigestion. Betaine hydrochloride gives the stomach more acidification, okay, more acid. Most of this is a lack of acid, and also the valve just doesn't close because there's a lack of acid. What betaine hydrochloride does is help you keep that top valve closed, giving you more acid so you can digest better. Sometimes you have to take 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 before a meal to get it to work because it's not like highly concentrated. Next remedy is zinc carnosine. Hands down, the best remedy for an ulcer in your stomach, and it helps calm down gastritis. Now, next remedy is selenium. Okay, selenium, believe it or not, is really good if you have AIDS. Selenium seems to fix certain T cells that will then help counter this AIDS situation, because AIDS is really an acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So basically, you don't have an immune system anymore. You lost the quarterback of the immune system. So selenium is very, very important in that. You can get a good amount of selenium just from one Brazil nut a day. Selenium is also good to lower getting this autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's. If you have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid problem, you need selenium. So when you think selenium, think Hashimoto's and AIDS. Next remedy is vitamin B1. Here's another interesting thing. You need magnesium as a cofactor to allow B1 to work. So if you take B1 and it doesn't work, it could mean that you just need magnesium. B1 is an amazing remedy for nervous tension, worry, stress, anxiety, restless leg syndrome. Restless leg syndrome, you take magnesium and B1 and you're almost guaranteed to get rid of that condition. Then we also have another type of B1 that's made in a fat-soluble form called benfotiamine. Benfotiamine is really good for anything with nerves in the peripheral part of the body, in the bottom of the feet, the toes, and the hands. You take 4 pills through the day. Just keep it in your body, and that condition will improve. Another supplement is calcium lactate for chronic coughing, but I normally do not recommend any calcium supplements other than if it's just a small amount, but you don't want large amounts of calcium over 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 milligrams because it's going to put you at risk for heart problems. And I recommend that you get your calcium from your food, like cheese, vegetables, sardines with the bones in it, but not as a supplement. Same thing with iron. I don't recommend you taking an iron supplement. I'd rather you get it from food, red meat, liver, or take liver pills. That's good for low blood pressure, but it's also good for energy. I also recommend potassium for people that are salt sensitive. They're told to lower their salt. I recommend you just increase your potassium. But the thing about potassium is that we need so much of it. We need 4,700 milligrams. I don't know of anyone getting that much. The next supplements, coenzyme Q10. If anyone's on a statin, they better be on coenzyme Q10 because a statin, which blocks cholesterol, will deplete you of coenzyme Q10. What about vitamin E? There's 2 different forms of vitamin E. I recommend the Tocotrienols one because it works 50 times stronger. And Tocotrienols are really good to prevent fibrosis. It's also good for angina, chest pain. It's good to support the inner layer of the arteries to prevent plaquing. It's also good for infertility. Next supplement is one of my favorites. It's called TUDCA. The TUDCA is a very specialized type of bile salt. A lot of people have a problem with thickened bile, and it creates pressure and causes pain that radiates to the right shoulder, up to the neck. TUDCA will just like make that go away. TUDCA is also good for neurological problems in your brain. It does a lot, but I have separate videos on that. Let's talk about iodine. Great for fibrocystic breast. That's an excess amount of estrogen that's causing those cysts, and iodine is a natural inhibitor or regulator of excess estrogen. So iodine's great for that. Vitamin C is good for collagen, especially for bleeding gums. You're brushing your teeth and it's like turns pink because you're bleeding easily because your gums are inflamed. You need vitamin C. Probiotics. If someone's on a lot of diet soda, they're going to really mess up their gut and they need to get off the artificial sweeteners. Biotin, good for hair, nails, and skin, especially to make your hair and nails grow. Manganese, good for Tourette's and tics. NAC is a wonderful supplement if you've accidentally taken too much Tylenol. It's really good for anything poisonous to the liver. So snake bites, poisonous mushrooms, think NAC and milk thistle. Mastic gum is good for gastritis. If you've tried a lot of different supplements for your sleep and it hasn't worked, I recommend melatonin for some people. Tends to help a lot of people, and it does a lot of other things, which I'll have to do a video on, but I recommend that for severe sleep problems that you've tried everything and nothing's worked. Niacin, really good for anything related to cholesterol, and I recommend taking higher amounts of it, 500 milligrams, 1,000, work up to it. You will have a flush response, and that's normal, but you want the one with the flush. Clove oil, great for any like pain in your teeth or gums. Now, of course, I can go on and on and on and on, but this is a fairly long video. I think you've learned the most important effects of certain supplements. If you want all this in a quick download, okay, I put the link down below. Check it out. Go ahead and download it and use it when you need it.